Aarohi Malhotra felt the world tilt the moment the priest declared her married. The words were still echoing in the hall when she lifted her eyes to the man sitting beside her. Flowers, lights, music, smiling faces, everything blurred. Only one truth stood sharp and frightening in her mind. She had just married a man she barely knew. Her hands trembled under the weight of the red bangles. The sindoor rested in her hair, heavy like a promise she had not fully understood. Applause erupted around them, loud and cheerful, but Aarohi could not breathe. She turned slightly toward her husband, searching his face for something familiar, something safe. There was nothing. He looked calm. Too calm. His expression held no excitement, no nervous joy, only a quiet steadiness that made her uneasy. She realized with a sudden shock that she did not even know what his favorite color was. She did not know how he laughed when he was truly happy, or what scared him at night. She did not know the sound of his anger or the warmth of his love. She only knew his name. Aarohi swallowed hard. What have I done? She thought. This marriage had happened quickly. Meetings arranged, polite conversations, careful smiles. Everyone said he was a good man. Responsible. Stable. Kind. That had been enough. Or so she had told herself. Love, she believed, was a luxury she could no longer afford. The groom turned toward her then, his eyes meeting hers for the first time since the rituals ended. His gaze held something unreadable, soft, almost painful. Aarohi felt her chest tighten. It was as if he knew her, truly knew her, in a way that frightened her. She looked away first. When the photographer asked them to stand closer, she obeyed, her step stiff. The man beside her adjusted his pace to match hers without a word. The small gesture sent a strange chill through her. How did he know? As rice fell over their heads in blessing, Aarohi felt tears sting her eyes. Not tears of joy, but of fear. She was stepping into a life with a stranger, bound by vows she had agreed to without love. What she did not know, what no one told her, was that this stranger had already loved her for 15 long, silent years. And her life was about to change in ways she never imagined. Aarohi had not always believed that love was unimportant. There was a time when she trusted it with her whole heart. Years ago, she had loved deeply and without fear. She had imagined a future filled with shared mornings, small arguments, and growing old together. But that dream had ended quietly, painfully, with promises broken and explanations that never came. The man she loved chose someone else, leaving Aarohi with questions that never found answers. After that, something inside her closed. She stopped believing in grand feelings and forever promises. Love, she decided, was unreliable. It asked too much and gave too little in return. It made people weak. Aarohi learned to protect herself by expecting nothing. Her family watched her grow distant. At family gatherings, relatives whispered, "She is getting older. She should settle down. A woman should not live alone for too long." The concern soon turned into pressure. Her parents were gentle but worried. They wanted security for her, a home, a name she could lean on. When the proposal came, Aarohi did not reject it. The man was respectful, educated, well settled. He asked few questions and made no dramatic promises. He spoke of partnership, responsibility, and mutual respect. To Aarohi, it sounded safe. Safe felt better than hopeful. She told herself she was being practical. There were no stolen glances, no racing heartbeats. And that felt like relief. Love had once shaken her life apart. She did not want it to return and do the same. Stability was enough. Kindness was enough. Or so she believed. Her husband was a quiet man. Reserved. He did not try to impress her with big words or stories. He listened more than he spoke. During their short meetings before marriage, he always gave her space, never crossing boundaries. His calm presence made elders trust him instantly. To Aarohi, he felt distant but dependable, like a wall that would not crumble, even if it did not feel warm. She noticed how he watched the room instead of her, how he chose silence over unnecessary talk. It made her think he was emotionally detached, just like she was. That comforted her. Two people asking nothing from each other could live peacefully. By the time she agreed to the wedding, Aarohi had convinced herself of one thing. Love was not necessary for marriage. Respect was enough. Commitment was enough. Love, she believed, was only a story people told to make life feel less lonely. She did not realize that love had already found her, quietly, patiently, long before she stopped believing in it. The first weeks of marriage felt strange to Aarohi, like living in someone else's life. Their new home was quiet. Too quiet. They spoke politely, carefully, as if every word might cross an invisible line. Aarohi stayed in her own corner, unpacking slowly, unsure where she truly belonged. Her husband never questioned her silences. He never demanded explanations. That should have made things easier, yet it made her uneasy. He woke before her every morning. When she came into the kitchen, tea was already waiting, made exactly the way she liked it. She had never told him how she preferred it. Less sugar. Strong. She stared at the cup the first time, wondering if it was luck. It happened again and again. He kept the lights dim at night because bright light gave her headaches. He avoided loud music in the house. On days when she came home exhausted, dinner was simple, comforting, food that reminded her of her mother's cooking. Aarohi tried to ignore the questions rising inside her, but they refused to settle. How did he know? He never touched her without permission. Never pushed. Never complained about the distance she kept between them. When relatives visited, he stood beside her quietly, shielding her from uncomfortable questions without making it obvious. When she struggled to sleep, he left a glass of warm water on the bedside table without a word. These were not grand gestures. No dramatic confessions. Just small, careful acts that felt intentional. Aarohi began watching him. She noticed how his eyes softened when she was tired, how he adjusted his steps to match hers when they walked together. Sometimes she caught him looking at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. There was something in his gaze that made her chest feel tight, something heavy, almost painful. It unsettled her. One evening, she fell sick with a fever. He stayed awake the entire night, changing cold cloths on her forehead, whispering nothing, asking nothing. When she woke briefly and saw him there, worry written openly on his face, she felt a strange ache. No one had cared for her like that in years. As days passed, her fear began to shift into curiosity. This man she had married out of practicality seemed to know her better than anyone ever had. And he did so without asking for anything in return. Aarohi told herself it meant nothing. Kindness did not equal love. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet part of her heart began to stir, confused, cautious, and slowly awakening. The truth came out on a rainy evening, when silence finally demanded answers. Aarohi was searching for an old file in the cupboard when she found the box. It was hidden at the back, plain and unmarked. Curiosity made her open it. Inside were letters, neatly folded, tied together with a thin thread. Her name was written on the first envelope in handwriting she recognized instantly. Her husband's. Her hands shook as she unfolded the letter. It was dated 15 years ago. The words were simple, honest, and devastating. He wrote about the first time he saw her in college, standing under a tree, laughing freely. He wrote about how that moment stayed with him. How her smile became something he carried quietly through the years. Aarohi sank to the floor, her breath uneven. She read letter after letter. Each one spoke of a life lived in silence. He had watched her from a distance, never crossing lines, never interrupting her happiness. When she fell in love with another man, he stepped back. When her heart broke, he stayed far enough not to remind her of pain. He had loved her without claiming her. When he entered the room and saw her sitting there, letters scattered around her, he understood. He did not try to stop her tears. "I never planned for you to know," he said softly. Aarohi looked at him, shock flooding her face. 15 years, she whispered. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" He took a slow breath. "Because love is not about possession," he replied. "You were happy once. I didn't want to disturb that. And later, you were hurting. I didn't want to become another burden." Her chest tightened with regret. All those years, his silence, her blindness. She thought of the kindness, the care, the patience she had mistaken for distance. "Then why marry me?" she asked, voice breaking. Because this time, you chose safety, he said honestly. And I could give you that without demanding love in return. Tears streamed down her face. The weight of his devotion crushed her heart and healed it at the same time. She realized the man she had married as a stranger had been loving her longer than anyone ever had, quietly, faithfully, and without expectations. And for the first time, Aarohi did not know whether to grieve the past or hold on to the future standing before her. Aarohi did not sleep that night. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment she had ignored, every quiet act of care she had misunderstood. For years, she had searched for love in loud promises and dramatic gestures, never realizing it could exist in silence. By morning, something inside her had changed. She began to see him, not as the stranger she married, but as the man who had chosen patience over confession, presence over possession. She noticed how he waited for her to speak first, how he never rushed her emotions. For the first time, she understood that his calm was not emptiness. It was control. Respect. Love held carefully. She did not rush to say anything. Love, she knew now, could not be forced. It had to be allowed to grow. Days passed. Then weeks. She started joining him for morning tea, sitting beside him instead of across the room. She asked about his day. She laughed at his dry humor. When he reached for her hand one evening and paused, silently asking permission, she let her fingers close around his. That small touch felt like a promise. Their marriage slowly shifted. It was no longer a role she performed for the world. It became a choice she made every day. She chose to listen. To stay. To try. One night, she finally spoke. "I don't know if I can love you the way you deserve," she said honestly. "But I want to learn." He smiled then, a real smile, warm and unguarded. "That's more than enough," he replied. Love did not arrive suddenly. It grew quietly, rooted in trust and shared silence. In the comfort of knowing someone would stay, even without guarantees. Months later, Aarohi realized she no longer felt afraid. Home was no longer a place of obligation. It was where he was. She had married a stranger, yes. But she had found a love that waited without asking, stayed without demanding, and healed without words. And in that quiet, steady love, Aarohi finally found peace.